There are things you only realize later, that some of what you know about softness came from watching other people with their mothers, that some of what you know about being held came from learning to hold yourself. If you lost your mother when you were young, this video was made for you. The loss of a mother in childhood is one of the oldest and most fundamental of human griefs. It is the loss not just of a person, but of a specific kind of presence. The first voice, the first touch, the first relationship through which every other relationship is understood and measured. And it is a loss that does not announce itself all at once. It arrives in waves at different ages, in different forms, each one shaped by who you have become since the last time it found you. And because she was so close to the beginning of everything, her absence shaped you from the very start. Not always in ways that were visible or nameable, but in quiet, foundational ways. In the way you learned to comfort yourself when something hurt, in the way you understood what love feels like when it is offered freely, in the particular hunger you have carried, perhaps without ever finding the right word for it, and in the quiet, persistent way you have always been reaching for something warm. And what comes next might put into words something you have felt since before you can remember. One of the things a mother does, quietly, constantly, often invisibly, is teach a child how to take care of themselves, not just physically, but emotionally. How to soothe yourself when something hurts. How to comfort yourself when you are frightened. How to rest when you are tired and tend to yourself when you are struggling. This is passed from mother to child, not through instruction, but through being modeled, through being held, through watching and absorbing without knowing you are learning. When that source is gone early, you have to find these things by other means. You develop an inner resource for self-soothing that most people receive from outside themselves first, before they learn to generate it internally. That resource, built by necessity, built young, built in the particular absence of the person who was supposed to hand it to you, is one of the deepest and most genuinely earned things about you. Nobody gave it to you. You built it in conditions that required you to. There is a specific kind of hunger that comes from losing a mother young. It is not always for her specifically, though it is sometimes for her specifically. It is a hunger for something she represented, a quality of warmth that is particular, a kind of care that is without condition and without agenda, a softness that does not require you to earn it or perform for it or explain yourself into it. This hunger shows up in different places for different people. In the particular gratitude you feel when an older woman is kind to you without reason, in the quality of friendships you are most drawn to, the ones that have a certain warmth in them, in the way certain kinds of care, tenderness offered without being asked for, a meal made for you by someone who loves you, land in you differently than they land in other people. It is a hunger most people around you do not carry in quite the same way, and it is completely understandable. And this next one explains something about how you learned to manage in a world that kept expecting you to be fine. A mother is often the emotional center of a child's early world, the person they return to, the place where feelings are received and made sense of, the steady point around which everything else turns. When that center is gone, the child has to find steadiness by other means, or go without it. Many people who lose a mother young describe becoming self-sufficient in their emotional life in ways that were simply necessary, but that carried a real cost. You learned to process things alone. You learned to come back to yourself without help. You learned that your feelings, while real, were sometimes yours to manage without a place to put them. And you became very good at it, so good that people around you often had no idea how much you were carrying or how long you had been carrying it alone. The emotional maturity this produced was genuine, but it was also early. And the loneliness of it, the particular loneliness of feelings with nowhere to go, is something worth naming clearly and finally. Most people who lose a mother young describe some version of the same searching, not always wearing her face, but always oriented toward what she represented. You may have found it in a teacher who was particularly warm, in a friend's mother who offered something without knowing what she was offering, in certain characters in books or films who made you feel something you did not fully understand until later. This searching is not something to be ashamed of. It is simply the continuation of a very human need, the need for the particular quality of care that a mother represents after the source of it is gone, and the things you found, the warmth you gathered from unexpected places, the ways you learned to receive care even when it came in forms that were different from the original. These are part of what you quietly built in the years after she was gone. And this last one is the thing I most want you to hear, because it is the one most people who needed to say it never did. The absence of a mother in childhood does not only take, it also, in ways that were not fair and were not chosen, sometimes gives. Not instead of her, and not as compensation, because there is no compensation, but in the particular conditions that her absence created. A depth of emotional self-knowledge that most people never need to develop so young. A sensitivity to other people's pain that comes from having sat with your own without comfort. A capacity for love that does not take ordinary days for granted, because you learned early that nothing is guaranteed, that the people you love can simply be gone. These things grew in you, in hard conditions, in the wrong kind of early, but they are real, and they are deep, and they belong entirely to you. Nobody handed them to you. You grew them yourself. A mother who is lost young was almost always a person with a life of her own, a history, a story, qualities and struggles and ways of being that existed long before she became your mother. In the grief of losing her, she can sometimes collapse into simply the person who was absent. But she was more than an absence. She was someone, with a childhood of her own, with things she loved and things she carried, with a self that existed independently of who she was to you. Whatever fragments you have of who she was, from photographs, from stories, from the things people tell you when they speak of her, they are pieces of a person who was real and full and complex, and you carry something of that person, whether or not you were old enough to know her. And before we finish, the one thing I want to leave with you: you grew up without the presence that was supposed to be the first and most foundational of your life, and you built yourself anyway. Not without cost, not without the hunger her absence created, not without the days when it caught you somewhere unexpected and felt as large as it ever did. But you built yourself. You learned to comfort yourself and anchor yourself and nurture yourself in the ways she might have shown you. And you did it without her, which is one of the most quietly remarkable things a person can do. This week, try one small thing. If there is something you know about her, one story, one quality, one thing she loved, spend a moment with it this week. Let her be someone rather than only an absence. You deserve to know her and to be known as someone who belonged to her in whatever way is still possible. If someone you know needed to hear this today, a friend, a sibling, someone who grew up the same way, share this with them. It might mean more than you know. Take care of yourself, and we will see you next time.